All right, this will be the video from 2021 for making our first bedroom project piece. We're starting with our HORNSUND Nightstand. So before I get started actually making it, I do just want to point out some of the basics of how it's built. So we're going to look at a picture of it from our good friend Mr. Jeffrey Bezos here on Amazon. So if we look at this, there's just a couple key things to point out. So first of all, it has this top little piece on top, flat top, but it has the bottom, the same amount of little extra trim around the outside. They're about the same height and same width, or they are the same height and width. So we got those. We got this little cubby area. Now, I will point out, it's not something I am going to require you create on yours, but it is important that I point it out. If you take a look here, you can see that this is like a square or rectangular prism, right? With a square shape. And then this inset goes behind this piece and then back. So if you wanted to make this truthfully, you would extrude this and then push these edges out and then extrude it again back. I'm not that kind of sociopath, so I tend to skip that part. So I'm just pointing it out there, though. So we got this cubby area here on the bottom half. We got a little divider here. I would reckon that the cavity also goes about halfway up this little piece here as well, but again, we're going to skip that. And then our two drawers here. They both have same little fixture knob on them. And I would want to point out the nice big gap between the two. And then there's thinner gaps around the outside of both of them. So there's like a thicker gap between the two drawers, thinner ones on the outside. And then we got feet, round feet. So we'll add those later. All right, so for starters, we're just going to grab a cube, and I'm going to pull it up off the grid, and I'm going to scale it up, because I don't like to work on things small. And okay, cool. And now the first order of business is let's shape this out. So if we look at this, we can see that, here, let me zoom in on this page. That didn't actually help me at all. So basically, I would just point out this thing is not actually a square. It's a rectangle. So it's a little bit taller than it is around. So let's make this a little bit more rectangular. All right, so I just scaled it vertically. Maybe a little more. Okay, cool. So that's step one out of the way. Now, next thing I want to do is I want to make these tops and bottom for this. So this little piece that's on the top and the bottom. So I'm going to just switch into my face selection mode. Let's grab the top and bottom faces. And we're going to do two quick extrudes. So first I'm going to extrude and just offset this a little bit. Negative offset, so you get it outside of it. And right now there will be some overlapping faces, so you will see some of the black flickery faces. Don't worry, that's going to go away in a second. So I did my first extrude, just changing the offset. And then another extrude. This time I'll just pull up on the blue arrow. And now on the top and bottom, we have these pieces. Cool. All right. Next order of business. Now, there are certainly ways that you could measure all of this stuff out, but for our purposes, just eyeballing it close enough is going to work. So I need to cut in some edge loops for this line right here, basically, where the edge of these dressers line up to the opening on this cubby. Same on this side, so that's another edge. I need to add an edge here, because I want to be able to extrude this space in, so I need to add an edge here. And I'll need to add an edge here horizontally for this, and an edge here dividing my, my drawers. So I'm just going to go grab Insert Edge Loop Tool, and I'm going to check my options and make sure they're reset, which they were not. So I'll close that. I'm going to go into my front view so that I can see this clearly. And then I'm going to start with my horizontal edges. So if I look at this, this part is about, the bottom of this is basically in the middle, more or less. So I'll just eyeball this to be in the middle. Sure. And then the next one I want to cut in, whoops, is this edge right here for the bottom of this drawer. So I'll bring that up a little bit. Next one I want to cut in is for the top thin drawer. Put that there. And now, I could eyeball these two edges. However, there's a better way that will at least make sure they're equally spaced. But, you know, the rest of it we will end up eyeballing. So I'm going to just go and open up my Insert Edge Loop tool settings again. This time I'm going to do multiple edge loops too. And I'm just going to split one of these horizontal edges. And that'll give me 2 vertical loops. And I'm just going to switch right over to the scale tool. And because they're evenly spaced in here, I can just scale these apart until I get the width on the side that I'm looking for. So that looks right. That looks about right. Cool. So next step, go back to my perspective view. Next step, I'm going to just, like I said, I don't need to worry. I'm not going to worry us about all that extra info or like all that extra work of making the cubby in here exactly like it is on the model. So we'll take it as it is. I'm going to just extrude this and push this face back. And the key is not to just push it out the back. So let's see. Boom, there's the black face. So I'll pull it back to here. And now I have my little cubby cut in. And let's go ahead and excuse me. Oh. Let's go ahead and cut in our drawers now. So I'm going to select both of these faces, which are my main faces for my drawer. Now looking at each of these, like I said, there's the small gaps around them and kind of a thicker gap between the 2 drawers. So we are going to add some offset on these faces, just like we did up here, but the other way. So I'm going to extrude. And then this is very important. When you extrude these faces, you need to make sure you toggle this keep faces together off, because you want both of these faces to get offset. And then I'm going to hold control because I want to fine-tune control of this. And then I'll drag on offset. And these don't need to be big. There we go. So I just added, using offset, some little small edges. Now with the faces I have selected, still selected, I'm going to hold down my shift key and then tap the period key once. And that will grow my selection. And you can see I now have these little small faces selected that I made. I'm going to hold control and deselect the big ones. So again, now I just have these little tiny faces selected that I made with my offset. Now I will extrude these, and you can just push them back. Doesn't really matter how far you push them back, just push them in. Now if I show you, see you have these gaps around the outside of the drawer. Cool. Now if we look back at our design, the top drawer is flat. Cool. But the middle drawer, or the bottom drawer I guess I should say, has a couple of different motifs, I guess, on here. So if you notice, there's these little things coming in here from this being brought not just forward, but being offset inward. So our first extrude is going to be an offset, and we're going to move it forward. Then for the second one, you can see it's just this little small rectangle panel on here, so we'll just do another small extrude forward. So it's 2 extrudes. First one's offset and move forward. Second one, you're just going to move the rectangle forward. So let's do that. Go select this face. Extrude. And I'll start with doing my offset. That's about right. And then I'll rotate to the side. Good rule of thumb is when you see the edges become hard. So look at this corner edge here. So as I pull this forward, you can see when the shading snaps. That's how you know the edge is going to be hard. Cool. So now I've done that. So I offset it and then moved it forward on the blue arrow. Extrude again. Slightly pull it forward. Now I have my drawer. Now I have both my drawers. We'll go back and add the knobs in a second. So we're basically done with this thing already. The last thing we need to do, or one of the last things we need to do, I should say, is add some feet. Now, minor problem. I have a bunch of extra edge loops here on the bottom that are getting in the way that I don't really need. So I'm going to just double click both of these edge loops here, and I'm going to do Command Delete. And so, oh, I forgot to do this in my demo in the first one. So we're going to grab multi-cut now because we don't want to leave these vertices unconnected to something. So I'm going to tie this off here to here, enter, drag there, drag to here, enter, and then I forgot these in my previous one. Up here too. Don't forget up here. Boom. Another triangle there. And another triangle there. And we're good on that. So now if I go back to face mode, whoops, and you look at the bottom, now I just have a solid face here. Except now I'm going to take this big square face and extrude it. And we're going to bring the offset in a little bit. Because now what I'm going to do is use these vertices as points to snap my my shoe, or the feet rather, my shoes. The feet of my nightstand to those vertices. All right. So to make that, I'm going to start with a cylinder. And I'll just, whoops, bring this up and over. And I'm going to start by adding 10 subdivisions to this thing. And I'm going to scale this out. Make it a little taller. So if we look at the shape of the feet on this, you can see they're just bulbous, almost spherical until they taper to the bottom where it's flat. And also, if you notice at the very top, there's just like a cylindrical part at the very top connecting it in. So it starts as a cylinder and then bulbs out and then tapers back down. So to do that, I'm going to take my edge loop tool, and I want to skip this one because I want this to be staying a cylinder. So I'm going to double click this, whoops, not that, this. I'm holding shift and double clicking these edge loops. And now what I'm going to do is just scale these down a little bit, scale up, scale down a little bit, deselect this, scale up, scale these together, deselect this. Sometimes you might need to move it up, sometimes you just scale it. Okay, deselect this. Now I'll start tapering this in. Control to deselect that one. Taper it in. Deselect this one. Deselect. Deselect. I'll just move that down there. There we go. I can make this a little bit more bulbous, I think. And there you go. There's our foot. You know what? I'm going to grab these verts and I'm going to scale them down because I'm nitpicky. Okay, cool. This is my foot. Now what I want to do, take my pivot point here, D and V held down, snap it to the top center of this foot, move tool, and let's go ahead and hold V and snap that down there. Hold F for frame. This foot is a little big, so I'll scale it down. Still a little too big. There we go. Okay, cool. So I'll duplicate that, move tool, hold V as in vertex, snap it over there. Whoops, wrong vertex. Duplicate again, V as in vertex, snap to the right vertex. Duplicate one more time. Snap to my vertex there. And then I'm not going to worry too much about these on the bottom. These technically could get rid of now, but they're fine. So the ones that I will be a little bit more nervous about or looking for are these ones that you'll, the vertices you'll use to snap on the handles for your drawers. So for the dresser drawer handles or the nightstand drawer handles, if you look at them, they're ovaloid in shape, and then just behind them is a cylindrical shape connecting them to the actual furniture. So how do we do that? Let's use a sphere. Let's grab a sphere, pull it up here, rotate it. In this case, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees to put it on its side. And the reason I'm doing that, folks, is if you look at my sphere, now the concentric rings are running in the direction that I want to extrude the straight cylinder out of this sphere. So now I'm going to just squash this. Right. There we go, little disc. Then I go into face mode and I grab this face and I shift double click the face next to it, get this whole ring. I'm going to hold down shift and then tap my period key once. That'll grow my selection. And then with these selected, I can extrude, switch to my move tool because I want to just move these straight back. And then two problems will arise. One, this is not flat. Two, these are not soft. So let's solve this one first. Let me go into my side view. And basically, easy, just take the scale tool, handle perpendicular to the faces you have selected, flattens that out. Then I'll come back here. So you can see that this now has hard edges. So I just need to go under edge mode, get these edges, and soften these edges. And then, honestly, I'm going to grab these verts. I need to move these back in. I made this a little too long. There we go. That looks reasonable. And then, same concept. I'm going to put the pivot point on the center back for this. Now I need some vertices to snap this onto. So I'm going to fashion myself some midpoints real quick. Mesh tools, insert edge loop tool, options. Let's change this from 2 to 1. Now remember, when you have the equal multiplier, multiple edge loops set to 1, it will perfectly bisect something. So don't worry, these edges won't be here for long. So I bisect it horizontally, vertically. This one horizontally too, because the vertical already cut through it. And now I got 2 verts right here, smack dab in the center for me to use. Take this, whoops, object mode. Take this, V as in vertex, grab the center, snap it on. Obviously this is comically oversized, so let me scale this down. And then duplicate, move tool, V, and snap. All right. Now we need to get rid of these edges. This is one of those things I will be looking for. Cleanliness will be a part of your project grade. So if I go back into edge mode, I don't need these anymore, so I just double click this, Command delete. Remember to delete edge vertex. Double click this, Command delete. Double click this, Command delete. And now those are in the middle, but there's no more edges there. So feet are on, the handles are on. I can go ahead and just combine these. And there you have it. For the low price of 1,800 vertices, most of which are on this and the handle. So, yep, that's it for making the nightstand. This is what it should look like when you're all done. So, thank you for watching.